Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody. Planet 76, episode 92. Tonight, actually, we're recording at night. Our playoff preview for round one for the Sixers. If you tuned in last week, which hopefully you did, you would know that we started our playoff predictions, or we did a regular season. I don't even know what I'm saying. We did our regular season last week.
Yes,
we did a regular season, finishing up a regular season. Sixers started the playoffs. First game, actually, of the playoffs on Saturday, 1 p.m. Make sure you guys, obviously, watch that. My name is Michael, and Troy is here as we both co-host the show. Got some big discussions to be had on this episode. Get your popcorn, get your drinks. You won't have to pay too much money because you're not at a movie theater. But make sure you get your snacks and sit down. We got some discussion to be had. Subscribe. And Troy, I'll let you start us off with this episode.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited about this one for sure. This is crazy to think about. I just thought about this just this second. This is our third playoff covering the 76ers. So we started with the playoffs of 2021. That was when we started this podcast. Covered that year and then last year, and now we're entering year 3. So really we started this podcast about 2 years ago, 92 episodes in. Thank you all for whoever support and follow on whatever platform you're on. Really excited about to be able to preview the playoffs. In the regular season it can be kind of funny, because there's so many games to cover and we record weekly, but now we get to really focus in on one opponent for the time being and what that means for the Sixers. Like you said, Sixers-Nets, 1 o'clock Saturday, tipping off the playoffs. First game of the playoffs if you don't include the play-in, which, by the way, Miami lost to the Atlanta Hawks tonight. That was pretty crazy. Couldn't believe that. Everyone was big on the Miami Heat. So, yeah, we're recording Tuesday night, getting this up, here and, just within the next few hours or certainly by Wednesday we'll have it up and you guys can listen for a few days before the playoffs get started. But I want to tell you this, too. So after every Sixers playoff game, we did this last year. We're bringing it back because we love it. Planet 7-6 5-minute recaps. Following each and every Sixers game. So you'll hear from Michael or myself as we recap the game that was each and every playoff game. And that's going to be available not just on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and those other platforms, and YouTube, but it'll also be available just to watch on Instagram. So you don't even have to go to one of those sources just to find those short recaps of the game. Just another thing that we're doing to keep you in the loop on all things Sixers and give our thoughts on each performance right after it happens. So really exciting stuff there. So, Michael, stage is set. Sixers Nets. I got a lot I got to say, but before we get to that, what was just your initial reaction even to how it played out? We kind of figured that this was going to be the case over the last few weeks. We could see it factoring, or dwindling down, I should say, to be Sixers Nets, the 3 and the 6 seed in the East, and here we are. Your initial thought to that before we get into too many details that we have to get into today.
Honestly, I'm kind of relieved because there was a time where I thought the Sixers were going to have to play the Miami Heat in the first round, and let's be honest, we really don't want that. Yeah. And Sixers fans, I've seen it on my page. Oh, no, bring it on. Miami Heat, let's go. No, I'm sorry.
I'm with you.
And don't let tonight's loss fool you because I don't really think that's indicative of the team they are. We've seen it this year. They know how to play Joel Embiid well, James Harden. 2, you need not a cakewalk in the first round, but you do need a tune-up. You need a more favorable matchup. And I think the Brooklyn Nets are, in fact, a more favorable matchup. Not a hot take at all.
Right.
But still, the Sixers need that, and they got it, so I'm relieved.
Relieved. I like that word, and I agree with you. We've talked about the potential of Miami's kind of lurking right there. Could that happen? We hope it doesn't, and it doesn't. Obviously, now Miami's got to win, over Toronto or Chicago, just to get the 8 seed and possibly play against the Bucks. I'm pretty sure the Bucks fans are now feeling the exact same way we have been, and they don't want that either. They have a history in the playoffs, right? They got Jimmy Butler, who turns it on in the playoffs, and they have guys, some guys who can really, really shoot the ball, who haven't shot at the clip that they, are used to over the last number of seasons. But who knows? Maybe they can turn it on in the playoffs. And yeah, you just don't want to see that team. You got Bam Adebayo, who can guard 1 through 5, and you just don't want that. So glad we avoided that. But is there a team that's more interesting than the Brooklyn Nets when you think about the grand scheme of things this year? Kyrie Irving's not on the team anymore. Kevin Durant's not on the team anymore. Ben Simmons hasn't played since mid-February. It's just very wild to see the team that is the Brooklyn Nets right now. It was really fun kind of doing some research on that because obviously, the 2 big deals with Kyrie and KD happened right around the deadline or hours leading up to the deadline.
Yeah.
And so, even to look into some numbers, okay, post-deadline Nets, what are they? And it was kind of interesting even to dive into some of that research. Any other thoughts there before I roll out some numbers, and then I'm going to have you to react to some of these numbers here. All right?
A lot of numbers.
Yes.
You guys can't see, but I can tell Troy did his homework on this one. I'm excited.
A lot of numbers. I'm going to jump in. You can stop me anywhere you want.
Go for it.
But, there's a lot here, but at the end of it, obviously, I want your reaction to, maybe 2, 3, 4, whatever sticks out to you from this, because there's definitely some that stick out to me. So real quick, some fast facts on the Brooklyn Nets. We are wasting no time here on episode 92 of Planet 76. 45-37 on the season, pretty much home and away identical. So 23-18 at home, 22-19 on the road. Pretty interesting nugget there. Again, February 5th, Kyrie Irving traded to the Dallas Mavericks. February 9th, Kevin Durant traded to Phoenix. Crazy. So February 9th on, at February 9th, they were a team that was 33-22 at the deadline. They are 12-15 since Kyrie and Kevin Durant's departure. Again, Ben Simmons, a guy that was shut down around that same time in mid-February. Mikal Bridges has been Brooklyn's leading scorer since the trade. He has led them in scoring in 18 of those 27 games. That is 2/3 of the games Mikal Bridges has been their leading scorer. He's averaging 26 points a game on over 18 field goal attempts. Pretty wild. And to put that in perspective, he was only averaging 17 in Phoenix this year on 13 field goal attempts. Bridges has 11 30-point games with Brooklyn. In his 365 games played with the Phoenix Suns, he only had 2. How about that? 11 30-plus games in 27 games and only 2 in 365 games. So talk about a guy who has a brand-new role in Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie has come back, we should say, averaging 9.1 assists per game in 26 games with Brooklyn. That's near the top of the league since his return to Brooklyn. And then I found someone real interesting, Cam Thomas, and we're almost done. Cam Thomas, no one else to me has been more up and down or had a more inconsistent role or even as far as minutes played even with Cam Thomas since the All-Star break. So in the month of February, Cam Thomas averaged almost 24 points a game and 28 minutes per game. The month of March, he averaged 6 points a game on 13 minutes. The month of April, 16 points a game in 19 minutes. So all over the place for Cam Thomas. I read some articles that said, yeah, he's a guy who seems to be the odd man out when everybody's healthy. We'll have to keep an eye on that during this series. Seth Curry, another interesting nugget here. He's down to just under 20 minutes a game this year. And we like Seth Curry on this podcast. We're fans of his.
We do.
During his time with the Sixers especially. But last season, to put that in perspective, Seth averaged 30 minutes a game. This season, under 20 minutes a game. Something to do with the coaching staff there. Post All-Star break, the Nets are 24th in offensive rating, so post-trade of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, 2 of the best offense players ever. And defensive rating, they are 13th. They lead the league in blocks per game. And if you don't know some of the starters and bench players that we can foresee in this series, and that's it. But Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton, Seth Curry, Joe Harris, Royce O'Neal, Day'Ron Sharp, and again, the interesting one there is Cam Thomas to see how much action he does in fact get. But that is the Brooklyn Nets in a nutshell. What sticks out to you there on some of those numbers, or maybe it's something else?
Well, a lot of this really tells me that even though the Nets, I don't want to say they're tanking. They're not tanking.
Right.
Even though they're kind of just in limbo right now, they still are a team that will compete. They're still a team that has guys who can do some damage. Mikal Bridges being one of those guys that can do damage. They have depth. They really do. And their whole team is basically depth. They don't really have a star. They don't really have a superstar. They don't have a superstar actually at all.
Yeah.
Their whole team is just really, really good role players. And
yeah,
I'm not using role players as an insult because, I mean, this is what these guys are, really. You're looking at Royce O'Neal, Day'Ron Sharp, DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton, Spencer Dinwiddie. Really, really good role players who would be great depth on any team in the league. Probably 6 men on any other team in the league. Maybe some starting starter caliber players there. They're a team that has a really solid bunch of really good players. So they're gonna play hard. They're not gonna just roll over and die. Otherwise they wouldn't be here right now. They wouldn't be the 6th seed if that was the case. Obviously KD, or I should say the Nets with KD and Kyrie, gave them a nice cushion with that 15-game win streak. But the Nets were able to maintain that with the team they had, which is a good team. Not great, but it's a good team. And I think it's going to be a competitive series. I do think the Sixers are going to win. Spoiler alert. But Mikal Bridges can catch fire. Absolutely. What is the word? I am floored. I don't know if floored is the right word. At his offensive, at the way he's able to carry this offensive load for the Brooklyn Nets when it comes to scoring, when it comes to getting his own shot. Because in Phoenix, he didn't create his own shot nearly as much, and that all comes with the role because he's now the number 1 in Brooklyn where he can take whatever shot he wants, basically, as the green light, as he should. But Mikal Bridges, I really like Dorian Finney-Smith. He could give the Sixers some issues, especially defensively against James Harden. Mikal Bridges could also do that. Nick Claxton could also do that. So, again, not going to be an easy series by any means. I don't think that it's going to be a cakewalk. I still think it's going to be like a 5 or 6 game at most. But it's going to be a competitive series, and the Sixers still do need to show up for that. They can't just sleepwalk their way through. They have to show up, really, and I think they're going to do that. I think they know what's at stake this year. So, I'm excited.
Yeah. It's the couple things that stick out to me are obviously the Mikal Bridges, because I don't know that there's that's a significant jump, and we're not acting like Mikal Bridges was a nobody in Phoenix. Like, he was averaging 17 a game, but to go from 17 to 27 mid-season, it's not like this is 3 years later.
I said, it comes with the territory too. He's carrying a much larger offensive load in Brooklyn than he ever was or did in Phoenix.
Yeah, and he's doing well with it. Obviously, 11 30-point games in 27 appearances for the Nets. The number 2 that's significant to me, and what you touched on, is that this team didn't roll over and die when the dumpster fire that was at the All-Star break or at the trade deadline. Yeah. Because again, they're 33-22. They were 11 games over 500. But there was obviously, when all that happened, there was fear. Nets could certainly fall into the play-in area with ease. That was probably what most people thought would happen. And this team isn't in the play-in. That's a win for them. I mean, you got to give some credit to the guys on the team. I know there are a lot of role players, but they're role players who did enough to make the playoffs as a 6 seed, 12-15 since all of that went down, and I'd probably argue that they're a little better than that, just because there's been some performances that you say, wow, they're not bad. Yeah. They're probably doing better than you think they should, but they're doing well. I did misspeak earlier, so I forgot. So I said Cam Thomas twice as far as people, but Cam Johnson is another player.
Yes, him too.
The forward from North Carolina, averaging about 14-15 a game this year. Someone to watch out for. as well. Yeah, so Brooklyn Nets 45-37, 6th seed in the East, doing battle with the Sixers in round one. Sixers did win the season series 4-0.
Wow.
All 4 of those games were different
Literally.
because, one featured Simmons, or at least one. One featured KD, and then the last game of the regular season featured nobody who we're going to see here in a couple days, and, just pretty crazy stuff. But I think there was one matchup last month that, I read an article, someone said this might be the matchup to look at, and Sixers won that game by 3.
I remember that
a little
game.
while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think that was in Philadelphia. Yeah. So, all right, why don't we did open it up for some mail, for some questions from Planet 76 listeners. We got 4 in total, so we thank you guys for that. I'll take the first 2. I'll read them to you, and then you can read the final 2. So let's do the first one from our guy Tahir 4TF. He said this. He said, "Do you think it would be a clean sweep in the first round against the Nets if James Harden can efficiently, keyword efficiently, drop 25 points and 8 assists on a consistent basis while also having Tobias Harris and George Niang play well as they have been in the last few games?" So if those things happen, Michael, 25 and 8 from James Harden consistently, and a couple guys playing well at the 3 and 4 position, does that mean a sweep for the Sixers?
Now, that is a lot of ifs. Let's just preface with that. It's a lot of ifs. A couple big asks, too, in my opinion.
Sure.
But, yeah, I do. I mean, you're talking... if Harris is the player that we know he is and Niang is actually consistent, hits his threes, the Sixers, and Harden does that, and you get Embiid, the Sixers are borderline unbeatable in that scenario. So, I think that's definitely a clean sweep.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think if you get those things, because those are, again, big asks.
Yeah, they are. Don't get it twisted.
Right.
Those are pretty big asks. But if it happens, yes.
Right, and that's the reason we can say yes, because that would be a great thing. I would not be mad about that. Another question from the same account here. He said, "I think Doc." I guess just our opinion on this. I think Doc Rivers should play Daniel House Jr. on some occasions when the aforementioned George Niang is not playing well in the playoffs. House has already proved that he can be a great all-around player. Michael, your thoughts on Daniel House taking some minutes from George Niang if George isn't playing well?
I like that. I do. Because we saw how the bench played last year. The bench was basically Milton, Niang, and... who was even on the bench last year in the playoffs?
Well, Milton had some burn. Niang, Paul Reed got in.
They had no bench. So now
McKees.
The Sixers kind of have a cushion this year because if Niang stinks it up again in the playoffs, they have House as a backup, and I'm not going to lie, I don't mind that. I like House as a backup in that scenario especially. Yes, I agree, and I do really agree with that. House has proved he can be a great all-around player. That's the player the Sixers signed in the offseason. That's the player the Sixers gave a 2-year, $8 million contract to. And I think House has proven that in the last few weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's played super well. And I kind of mentioned it in a post I made the other day, but House could maybe get a spot even in the playoff rotation if it goes 9-10 even, which we know Glenn likes to do. So I say yes. I'm cool with that.
Okay. I have a follow-up off of that, throwing another name out there, and Jalen McDaniels.
Yeah.
So 3 guys, Jalen, George Niang, and Daniel House. In an ideal world, I guess I'm putting this way, in an ideal world, what would that look like for you in the playoffs as far as those 3 guys?
He said House, McDaniels, and who?
And Niang. As far as minutes.
Yeah, I would say Niang gets most if he's actually hitting his threes. McDaniels, I might favor McDaniels a little more just because of the versatility and the defense and the rebounding, which Niang doesn't, unfortunately, really give you all of that at all in any capacity. So I would probably favor McDaniels, but I can see Niang getting the bulk of the minutes, especially if he's actually hitting his threes. and then a sprinkle of House, depending on the matchups. If it's a smaller lineup for the Nets, I could see House getting more burn in that scenario.
Okay. I like it. All right, do you see those last two on here?
Yes, I do. So
go ahead and run through those.
So we got 1 second. So we got Krish Patel. I recognize that name, I think. Shout out to Krish. Will we get to see Jaden Springer in the playoffs? Troy, what do you think?
I'm gonna say in the games where we're up 20 or down 20, we will see Jaden Springer. As much as we'd like to, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I don't sound like a hater because I like Springer a lot. He's still like 21. We're the same age. I could be in the NBA right now. I'm just kidding. But I just don't see it. I don't know if he has a spot behind Melton, behind Maxey, behind Harden, behind Milton. Someone said, I saw a few people say that Springer should play over Milton, but not because I like Shake Milton, because I do. Troy knows that. If you're listening, you probably know that. But that's not why. I just don't know if he's ready. If Springer's he's hardly had any NBA regular season action. So I don't know if he is ready for playoff action.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. All right, what's the last one? Round it out.
All right, so we got... Why is my thing freezing? I'm sorry. So we got Luke Fret. How much does this series mean in terms of seeing how far the Sixers go? For example, if this goes to 7, is there any reason to be concerned about another second-round exit?
Whew.
What do you think? I like this question. It's more of like a philosophical question. I like this a lot.
Yes,
I like
it is.
this a lot.
Yes,
Shout
it
out
is.
to Luke Fred.
So, as much as I like to think that this round and how they perform, what it looks like, really matters, when I first saw this question, I thought, heck yeah, it matters. But then I think back to other years where we look really good in round 1, and it's like, well, where's the carryover? Or we look really bad in a round, or and then we go 7 games with the Raptors or whatever. Because I don't even who do we play? We played Brooklyn that year, I think, before we played the Raptors.
Yes.
In 2019. Yep. But I don't know how much of a factor it plays. I will say this: I will be a little concerned if the example here, if the Sixers go 7 with the Brooklyn Nets, I'll be a little concerned heading into the second round. But if the Sixers sweep the Nets, I'm worried about the Celtics. But I would be more so if it goes 7. So I guess there's a little truth to that. But I don't want to put too much stock into it because the Celtics are going to be a very tough opponent for the Sixers. So that's my thought. How about you?
You kind of touched on it. We've seen playoff matchups between two teams be very close. The team that wins goes on to the next round and just looks like an entirely different team. Sure. So I wouldn't say a big reason. I don't think that's a huge indicator of really anything, because really the playoffs is matchup dependent and based on how favorable your matchup is. So the Sixers could play a more favorable, hypothetically, which the Celtics are not. They're not more favorable. But the Sixers could play a more favorable matchup in the second round and look a lot better than they did in the first round. So I think we should look at each series separately. I think we should separate each series and look at them through a vacuum. Obviously, take some things to the next series, but you're still playing an entirely different team. And really, at the end of the day, it's the NBA, and we've seen crazy things happen. We've seen teams win when they shouldn't, lose when they shouldn't. And I think that applies to the playoffs as well, especially, let me emphasize this, especially with the Sixers. Yeah. So I would say not a huge reason, but maybe just a little, just like 3% concerning, maybe 5%.
Right, if it goes 7.
Yeah. But if it does go 7,
so what do you think?
That's not. You don't want the series going 7.
It's not good. You don't want that, right? So what do you think makes Brooklyn a potentially tough matchup, or however you want to approach that, tough or just something to watch for as a key, or whatever that might be? I've got a couple of thoughts here. One, I think first and foremost, just the team that they are with all these role players. They play well together. Again, Spencer Dinwiddie is averaging over 9 assists a game since he's been with the team. Mikal Bridges doing what he's doing, and I just think they have obviously an underdog mentality to them. They got nothing to lose. No one's expecting them to win the series. Sixers are heavy favorites, so that's something to watch for because they're just playing free. That's my one thought about that could be a little scary. How about yourself? What could make Brooklyn potentially tough, or something that they do well that you're aware of?
Yeah, really, you hit on it in our outline here defensively. I mean, they have switchable pieces. They have guys that can shift up and down and defend different positions, defend players bigger than them, players smaller than them. Nick Claxton is one of the best defenders in the league. Could definitely cause some issues for Embiid. He can also switch when it comes to guarding Harden and Maxey. Mikal Bridges can guard a couple positions as well. Very active defensively is Mikal Bridges. Then you have Dorian Finney-Smith, who can kind of do both. He can guard smaller players, but also guard bigger players. We've seen him guard Joel Embiid before, not, having varying degrees of success doing that. Not many players are successful, as we know, in guarding Embiid. But they have a lot of switchable moving pieces defensively that can slot in and out of, or I should say, guard players above and below them when it comes to height difference, position, things like that. So that could definitely cause some issues for the Sixers, and especially if Embiid is having a bad game, they can definitely get a leg up on the Sixers in that scenario and really take advantage of a scenario where Embiid is not playing well, or even Harden, really, because they could even throw Claxton and Harden in the pick and roll. Claxton has the length, he has the athleticism, not really to keep up with Harden, but definitely to make things difficult for him, especially if he's getting switched on Harden, getting switched on Maxey, things like that.
Yes, so I agree with that. Tough matchup defensively. What's your thought, though, on, because I talked about this earlier today, Mikal Bridges, he's in a completely different role. Came into the league, 3-and-D guy, very good defender. But now with this new role as the team's number one choice, a lot of times you don't like throwing him on the best offensive player night in, night out because of that. What does that I don't know. I don't know the answer to this is what it's looked like over the last 20 games for the Brooklyn Nets, but what do you think that could look like in a series? I don't know that he's going to be guarding James Harden for 40 minutes a game. How do you think they're going to stagger?
Well, that kind of draws into what I was saying, because they have a lot of switchable pieces they can throw at Harden. Mikal could take the primary assignment. They have a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith who can come out and guard Harden. Cam Johnson, who you mentioned, can come out and guard Harden. They have... Who else is on the roster? I really should know this. I do. I swear I do. I swear I know this. Royce O'Neal is a pretty switchable defender. He's not too mobile. He's not really too agile, so Harden can take advantage of that for sure. But Royce O'Neal is somebody that can throw at Harden defensively. Even Dinwiddie could make things a little difficult for Harden defensively. He's not a crazy lockdown defender, but he's bigger. I think he's like 6'4", 6'5". He's quick as well, so he can keep up with Harden. But the switchable defenders that the Nets have can help Bridges because he won't have to, like you said, guard Harden for the entire game, which helps on the offensive end because he's their best offensive player by a decent margin. So then, if he doesn't have to do as much defensively, he could do way more offensively, which is really what the Nets need from him. So that will help him in a lot of ways.
Right. I think that's something to watch. That's a big key to watch because, obviously, Harden has a knack for drawing fouls. They don't want to see their best scoring option, a guy who's taking 18 shot attempts a game.
Basically, they're the only guy that can actually create a shot for himself.
Yeah. So that's something that's huge to watch.
Yeah.
And then where do you think the Sixers can look to take advantage? So that's something to watch with the Nets, their defensive ability. They lead the league in block shots. Where can the Sixers take advantage? What's to their strength?
Well, I would like to say 3-point shooting, but I don't think it is. Oh wait, do you have you said on here you have the Sixers first in NBA 3-point percentage?
Yes.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What? Well,
Yeah.
in that case, I'll say 3-point percentage. But I don't know. I still would probably trust the Nets 3-point shooting a little more than the Sixers. I just feel like they have more. I feel like they have more firepower than the Sixers do. Even though the numbers say the Sixers make the most amount of threes. But yeah, and you mentioned the 2-star power. I think is huge because they clearly have the advantage there. I do think they're a little deeper than the Nets because of that star power. Like, the star power bumps down the role player, so the whole team itself is a bit deeper because you have guys in different spots on the floor that make up the whole team. So it's definitely star power. That helps a lot. And I think they're a better scoring. I think they're better at putting points on the board than the Nets. Like, they have their ability as a team to score points, I think, is better. And you can match that with the Nets' defense because they're also one of the best defensive teams. Well, I guess I say that loosely because I don't actually know. I'm going to look it up. But the Sixers, I think, definitely are better at putting points on the board because of Embiid, because Harden, because he can score, he can get guys involved, things like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that the Sixers have to their advantage in this series versus any other potential series that they're going to have is the star power effect.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier. The Brooklyn Nets don't have any superstars. The Sixers have the league's leading scorer and likely MVP. Yeah. They have James Harden, a former MVP, who has done something that nobody's ever done. I think he's, what is it now? He's led the league in assists and points for multiple times, like 3 times he's led the league in points, and twice led the league in assists, something like that. Never been done. James Harden's amazing. Like, and you got Tyrese Maxey, and you got Tobias Harris. Like, these are guys who can really, really play. Like, Tobias Harris could go into average 24 on the Brooklyn Nets. Like, let's get real. Maybe not 24, 20. Yeah. So star power is going to win. Right, and it usually does in the playoffs. It usually does in a series, and there might be games that are close midway through the third, and then someone's going to go off for 10 straight. Like, that's just what the Sixers have to their advantage in this series that the Brooklyn Nets just don't have. Another thing, like you said, 3-point percentage. Sixers are there, number 1 in the league, and they're also number 1 in the league in free throw percentage. They get to the line a ton. They don't lead the league in attempts, but they're right up there. But when they get there, they knock it down, due in part to James Harden and Joel Embiid, of course, with a large chunk of that. But I think that's somewhere the Sixers can take advantage. I think another key is the ability to get on the glass. So the Nets and Sixers, when it comes to rebounds per game, are near the bottom, both of them. So that's going to be something to watch. Who's gonna get on the glass? The Nets are gonna want it. They're gonna fight. They're gonna need second chance opportunities. The Sixers, if they want to keep this series short, they need to limit that. They need to limit that for the Nets. Another huge key is health. Let's be honest.
Dude, honestly, like, that might be the biggest key. Like, I know you have some here, but that might be the biggest. That's for the entire playoffs, really.
Yeah, because we've seen it, right? Well, I mean, Joel Embiid missed the first 2 games against Miami last year in the second round.
Yeah. Because
of an injury in the first round. Changed
the entire series. It really did.
Changed the entire series. He came back in game 3 like he was doubtful to play. He came back and they won, and then we know the rest of the story. But like, let's stay healthy. Let's keep Joel on his feet. Let's get Joel like 100% going into round 2. That would be big. James Harden even last year, he wasn't at his best with the hamstring issue. The burst has been there all year. He's looked good all year. Outside of a couple injuries early on, but like, he looks good. Let's keep that. So keep everybody healthy, keep everybody strong. Something I think that's more of like just something to watch is the roles. We've talked about that, rotations. What's it going to look like in this series? Is it going to be the same in the next series? Where do these guys fit in? We talked about them earlier, George Niang, Jalen McDaniels, and Daniel House Jr. How's that going to look? And then something I want your thoughts on, too, is the 3-guard lineup we've seen with the Sixers several times now. James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and DeAnthony Melton. They're not going to start all 3, but those guys playing together, and you throw out Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid out there, like that's an offensive lineup, right? Like who do you not guard? That's a dynamic lineup. Yeah. What's your thoughts on the use of that in this potential series coming up?
I think it could work pretty well, especially if the Nets go smaller, which they could do. I think Day'Ron Sharpe is like kind of an undersized 5, so they could do that. If the Nets go smaller, Harden, Maxey, Melton, Harris, and Tucker, I like that a lot. Spaced out. Defensively, kind of shaky, but could work, especially with the scoring and the firepower that you have in that 5-man rotation, 5-man lineup. I like that a lot, and we saw that this year a lot too. So not a lot, but enough, I would say.
Right. I mean, I love watching those three together because I think it just and then and again, like you said, it might not even be Joel out there. It could be PJ Tucker. You could go real small. Depends on what the other team does, of course, but it's just fun to watch, and it's a lineup where you're like, all right, this team's going to score. Like we're gonna put points on the board, like you said earlier. You're not going to stop them because there's so many options. So you're going to help off of all those things. So, last couple things. So let me get you to fill in the blank here. So, obviously we would like for this series to end in 4, but we 5 gentlemen sweep. 6, 7 we definitely don't want. 6 a little less, but like 4 or 5 is reasonable. Yes. We want that. Yes. We desire that. We crave that, whatever you want to say.
Yes, we do.
But how does it happen? So the Sixers win this series in 4 or 5 if
they honestly, I think if everybody stays healthy, and I mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, if they show up, they win the series. And I don't mean to downplay the Nets, I swear. I don't. Yeah. I'm not trying to do that. But the Sixers are good. Obviously, they're a good team. So if they show up, they're going to... It really is... To me, it's that simple. If they show up, they win the series. Because they are just... I just think they are that good. I really do. Mm-hmm. I really do.
Right. They're just better.
Yes.
It's just a better team.
You're the better team.
No disrespect to the Nets.
It is your job to win this series.
Yes. No disrespect. We gave the Nets some high praise earlier. So if you're only watching the end of this podcast, then go rewind it a little bit. We gave them props. We gave them their flowers. But everybody knows it. The Sixers are a better team, and the star power that they have is more than capable of ending this in 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I think they just got to show up, play their role, know what they're going to do, and execute the game plan. All right, so do you want to give a prediction? I mean, is Sixers in 4, Sixers in 5, Sixers in 6?
Sixers in 5, and Joel Embiid averages 30.
Okay. All right, I am going to say the same. Sixers in 5. Joel Embiid averages 35. No,
wow, dude, I mean, that would be like... That might, especially if he, depending on how efficiently he does that, that would easily be the best series of his career.
Yeah, 100%. Sixers in 5. We'll give the Nets 1. We'll give them.
Wait, I said 5 too? Right?
What's that?
I said 5 too, right? I said that.
Yeah,
okay,
5.
Just making sure. Like I do want to give the
Sixers
Nets
in 5.
Because, like I said, they're a good team too. They did make the playoffs. They did, and that's
right.
To me, if
you're the play-in,
playoffs, you're a good team.
Yeah. Yeah, just a very interesting team. Fun to talk about. Fun to preview.
Yes.
So we're done with the preview, man. We're gonna get it rolling Saturday at the Wells Fargo Center, 1 p.m. on ESPN. Oh. Shortly to follow will be our first Planet 76 5-minute recap of the playoffs. So be on the lookout for that. And it is playoff time. Sixers. There's a lot riding on this.
Huge.
Do you want to give? Because I know. You've been talking about it. You've posted about it. Trust the love. This playoff series.
Crazy. I was shocked.
Not series. Playoff run for the Sixers is the biggest in franchise history. Is that what you said?
It might. That's what I said. It might be.
Okay.
It might be.
So we're going to end with that. Why?
Why? I mean, I don't know that there's been this much pressure on an organization. Or I guess this organization. Joel Embiid, James Harden, Doc Rivers. Like, I don't care what anybody says, Doc Rivers is on the hot seat as well because He's had a chance. He's had
Preach.
multiple chances. James Harden and him staying healthy. People labeling him a playoff choker. Joel Embiid, him staying healthy. People labeling him a playoff dropper. Huge. Not to mention, James Harden might leave. I mean, we know. Sure, it might have been all smoke, but we don't actually know because we're not James Harden. We're not in his camp. We have no idea what he's thinking. Joel Embiid. I don't want to say this right now, but if the Sixers get bounced in the second round, could he request a trade? I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know, but I don't want to think about
find
that
out.
because I'm scared of that. So let's
we
just
don't
hope
find out.
they don't lose. That's what I'll say.
Let's hope they
Let's
don't.
hope that
There's a lot riding, and I don't disagree with you. I just wanted to hear because I like the way you put it. Even reading it on your page, or it gets me pumped up a little bit because this is it.
The
pressure's on. Tyrese Maxey said it. The pressure's on. They
know it. They all know it.
As
they
a
all
young
know
guy.
it.
Now we got to go out and execute, and it starts Saturday. So I hope you guys are excited as we are here on Planet 76 for this Sixers playoff run. Whatever that's going to look like. Again, keep your eye out for those 5-minute recaps following every single game. Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You know the drill. Google Podcasts, wherever you find those. And let's go Sixers. It is playoff time.
Yes.
We'll see you next time. If you are a Philadelphia 76ers fan, this is the podcast for you. Planet 76, a weekly podcast covering all things Philadelphia 76ers. We'll see you next time.